In this class, we're going to learn how to solve quadratic equation using the factorization method. And the type of quadratic equation that we're going to be focusing on is the type where A is not unity. You understand? You know, in our previous class, I gave you a typical representation of a quadratic equation. We have ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Now, in this quadratic equation, A is the first term, B is the second term, and C is the constant term. Now, what we discussed in our previous class is the type where A is unity. A is unity simply means that the value of A is 1. You understand? The value of A is 1. But the type of quadratic equation that we're going to be factorizing in this class is the type where A is not 1. You understand? A is not unity. Okay, let's start with the first question. We are asked to solve for the value of x in this quadratic equation. 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals to 0. In this quadratic equation, A is not unity because the value of A is 2. You understand? A is the coefficient of x squared and B is the coefficient of x. C is the constant term. In this quadratic equation, the value of A is not unity. You understand? Is not unity. If it is unity, the value of A, that is the coefficient of x squared, it will be 1. So how do we solve this quadratic equation using a factorization method? You just have to pay attention. In this quadratic equation, A equals to 2 and B equals to plus 5 and C equals to plus 3. You understand? You can neglect the plus, okay? 3 is always the same thing as plus 3. You understand? Now, the first step is to take the product of the first term and the constant term. The first term is A and the constant term is C. You understand? Okay? The product of the first term and the constant term is equals to 2 multiplied by 3. That will give us 6. You understand? So, now, having taken the product of the first term and the constant term, you have to think of two numbers. Hello, pay attention. The product is this. This is product. Okay? Okay? Now, you have to think of two numbers such that when you take the product of that two numbers, it will be equal to the product of the first term and the constant term. And when you sum these two numbers, it will be equal to the product. It will be equal to the second term in the quadratic equation. Let me explain what I mean. The first step in solving a quadratic equation where A is not unity is that you have to take the product of the first term and the constant term. The first term is A and the constant term is C. A in this quadratic equation is 2 and C is 3. So the first step is that I take the product, which is 2 and 3. So I got 6. Now, having taken their product, we know that in this quadratic equation, the second term is B. The second term is B and the second term is 5. Now, the next step is that you have to think of two numbers such that the product of these two numbers will give you the product of A and C. What is the product of A and C? The product of A and C is 6. So when you think of these two numbers, it must give you 6, and when you add these two numbers together, you must get 5. What are those two numbers? Those two numbers are 3 and 2. Okay? Hello, pay attention. Those two numbers are 3 and 2. Now, let me just write it somewhere. 3 and 2. 3 and 2. Now, you know that 3 multiplied by 2 equals to 6. Yes? And 3 plus 2 will be equals to what? 5. You can see now. So, when I take the product of these two numbers, I got 6, which is equals to the product of A and C. And when I add these two numbers together, I got 5, which is equals to the second term in this quadratic equation. Do you understand? Okay? Now, the next step is that you have to replace the second term by these two numbers, by the sum of these two numbers. You understand? Listen again. This is what I mean. You have to replace the second term in this quadratic equation by these two numbers. The quadratic equation is what? 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals to 0. Now, I'm going to replace the second term. The second term is B, and B is what? 5. So I'm going to replace 5 by 3 and 2. You understand? I'm going to replace this by their sum. So let's proceed. For this, I'm going to have 2x squared plus, so instead of 5, I'm going to have 3 plus 2. You understand? 3 plus 2 into bracket x. You understand? I replace 5 by 3 plus 2. You understand? If you sum 3 and 2 together, you're going to have 5. Okay? So I'm going to have here plus 3. Okay? Plus 3 equals to 0. Do you understand? Okay? Now let us proceed. For this, I'm going to have 2x squared plus, I'm going to open this bracket using this x. 3 multiplied by x, that is what? Plus 3x plus 2x plus 3 equals to 0. Do you understand? Okay? Now, here, I'm going to divide this equation into 2. The first part will be this, and the second part will be this. You understand? Okay? You see, just pay attention. You're going to understand, okay? This is very simple. All you have to do is to pay attention. Here, I replace 5 by the two number that I thought. You understand? You take of two number in which their product will be equals to the product of your A and C, and their sum will be equals to the second term, which is B. You understand? So having done that, you replace those two. You replace the second term by those two number by the sum of those two number. So I replace the second term, which is 5, by 3 plus 2. You understand? And 3 plus 2, I enclose this in bracket. So that means that x is multiplying everything in the bracket. 3 times x is what? 3x. 2 times plus 2 times x is what? Plus 2x. So having gotten to this point, I separate this equation into 2. You understand? Now, from this point, we're going to factorize. That is why we call this method factorization method. Okay? From this point, you are going to factorize. Hence, I'm going to have what is common to 2x squared and 3x. The common term to 2x squared and 3x is what? X. Okay? Here I'm going to have x into bracket. Are you paying attention? 2x plus 3. You have to learn how to factorize. When we talk about factorization, when you are factorizing two terms, you are looking for the common term. You understand? So the common term between 2x squared and 3x is what? X. You understand? Now let's try. Let's open this bracket using x. X multiplied by 2x, that will be what? 2x squared. X multiplied by plus 3, that will be what? Plus 3x. Do you understand? Okay? Now let's move to the second bracket. What is common to plus 2x and plus 3? The common term is what? Plus 1. You understand? So I'm going to have here plus 1 into bracket 2x plus 3. This will be equals to 0. Please let me give you an hint. Anytime you factorize, when you get to this point, you have separated the two brackets. When you factorize, what you have in this bracket must be the same as what you have in this bracket. Do you understand? Okay? Let me take that again. When you get to this point, when you are solving any quadratic equation using the factorization method, what you have in this bracket must be the same as what you have in this bracket. You understand? So if by the time I factorize and I realize that what I have in this bracket is not the same thing as what I have in this bracket, something is wrong. Okay? So let us proceed. Here I'm going to, this is outside the bracket. X is outside the bracket and this is also outside the bracket. So I'm going to add them together. I'm going to have x plus 1 equals to 0. Then I'm going to take one of these brackets. 2x plus 3 or 2x plus 3. I'm going to take one. I'm going to set it equals to 0. You understand? Here I'm going to have 2x plus 3 equals to 0 as well. Here, now we can easily determine the value of x. X equals to, if this positive one get to the other side of this equation, is going to change to negative. So I'm going to have negative 1 or x. Okay, let's do step by step. 2x equals to, if this positive 3 crosses the equals to sign, it's going to change to what? Negative. So I'm going to have x equals to 2x equals to negative 3. Don't forget, we are asked to determine the value of x. So x equals to negative 1 or divide both by 2. Or x equals to what? Negative 3 over 2. Do you understand? I'm very sure you can see that we have two values for quadratic equation. You understand? When you are solving, when you are looking for a value in quadratic equation, because the highest power of a quadratic equation, the highest power of the unknown in a quadratic equation is 2. Hence, the solution to that quadratic equation must be 2 solution. You understand? The root of this quadratic equation must be 2. So by the time you substitute the value of x as negative 1 into this quadratic equation, or x as negative 3 over 2 into this quadratic equation, you're going to have 0. You can try that. Okay, so I'm very sure you can now solve you can deal with quadratic equation using factorization method where a is not unity. Do you understand? That is how to solve quadratic equation using the factorization method where a is not unity. Okay, so we're going to delve more into more work example in our next class. Okay, see you in the next class.